Have you ever felt like the harder you try, the worse it gets, that you just can't seem to communicate with your partner? If you're wondering if it's time to call it quits, today is your day, because we're having an open and honest, faith-filled conversation on navigating the tough moments in your relationship. And we're going to dive into the signs that your efforts might not be paying off and when it's time to consider other options. Get your answers you need coming up right now. Welcome to this week's episode of the Home to Haven podcast, where we are married and growing in communication. We're so thankful, so happy you've joined us this week on the episode. Hey, it's a new week. We are Terrell and Jen Turner, and we are helping you communicate in your relationship. This is your home for everything that you need faith-filled to grow in communication with your partner. So thanks for tuning in on the podcast or on YouTube. We're happy you're here.
Yeah, so glad you've joined us today. Happy to have you. It is mid-July.
It is mid-July when we're filming this and recording this. And so hope you're having a wonderful summer. It is hot. I guess they say hot as balls, but
Really?
it is absolutely hot. There's been no rain. It's been, 12?
It's been a minute.
It has been a minute. We actually had a wonderful time. We try to help navigate our relationship, a marriage, work, responsibilities, and family, raising two twins. And so we had a family night a few weeks ago. That was super fun. Family fun night. We did that. We went to a Charlotte FC's soccer game.
Yep.
And so if you'd like to see that, I'm going to put the description in below. We've got a brand new playlist on the channel. We're going to take you into our lives.
That's right.
And let you see how we go on trips, and this is what we do as a normal everyday family, and how we manage, how we balance all the different aspects of our lives. We're teaching you how we do it.
That's right.
It can be done. We're not perfect, of course, but hopefully check that out and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any video. Again, we'll link to the Charlotte FC game. I'm going to call Audible right quick because I want to lead into this topic about when to give up.
Okay.
Just before we press record to sit down and record this podcast, Jen was having some technical difficulties with her iPad and her technology. We have a piece of software that we use for all of our notes. Everything for all of our episodes are laid out in this particular, we use Notion, and she's got a separate Notion for her personal life. And you were trying, I've got it to where we can switch back in between workspaces. It's very cool.
Yeah.
But one of the issues with technology is that you have to log in, log out, authenticate, SSO, codes.
Too much. There's way too much. We talked about this a little bit a couple episodes ago.
Okay.
When I was trying to log in that time, because I was using a new piece of technology. Like we had bought a new iPad.
Okay.
And so this time around,
we've already discussed this on the podcast.
A little bit, yeah.
So you've continued to have issues.
Because it should not be hard to log into a program when you have a username and password. It's not like I forgot my password, forgot my username, but it's not that simple these days.
So I get that.
So,
and you were very frustrated. And you were like, I'm quitting. I'm tapping out. I'm stopping. And I was like, no. Like, number one, I'm not going to let this. I don't personally want anything to beat me. And I don't want anything to beat me. And I'm like, it can't be that hard. And so, turns out you were experiencing some issues that you actually didn't have to experience.
Correct. Because
there is a way you can log in through your Google account. And because you were using your Google Gmail, it was asking you for all these different things. Whereas if you just sign in with Google, it was one and done. And so that led me into today's episode of when is it time to give up communicating with your partner? Like you are just trying all these different methods and I can't seem to get this to work. It won't give me the code. I got the code. Now I got to log into my phone. Now my phone's going.
It shouldn't be this way.
It shouldn't be this hard. I've got my Mac, my
way.
phone, and my iPad.
They're right here.
And they're all three together.
I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Nothing was working.
Right.
And you're like, I call it quits. It's like, wait a minute, hold it. Before you quit, we got to look at, what are you doing wrong?
Oh, no.
Because you're right. It should not be this hard.
Right.
And so as we're like, I'm trying with this and he won't listen, or I'm trying to communicate, that's what we're here for. Is like, let's identify what's happening, because you may be feeling today, I'm ready to quit. I'm ready to give up. I'm tapped out. I've tried everything. I'm at my wits end. Mm-hmm. What do I do, Terrell? What do I do, Jen?
Yeah. And so I think that's a great place to start is, why are people even feeling that? Why are people feeling like their communication's not working? What are those
pain points?
Yeah, the pain points that they're feeling, that even that thought crosses their mind that I just need to give up. So
because it can be really challenging.
Yes.
Absolutely. You are at your wits end. You're challenged. Mm-hmm. You're like, what is going on? Mm-hmm. Why? Because you want to obtain something. You're trying to, reach an objective, right, and there's an obstacle that's keeping you from getting that. And so, yes, whether it be your spouse, your kids, your parent, whatever it is, you're trying to communicate, or they're not giving you the answer you need, or when they respond back, it may be with a different tone. It may be passive aggressive. Right. It might be judging. Mm-hmm. They heard it wrong. They said something wrong, and there's all these different obstacles that's keeping you and hindering you and preventing you from having that meaningful understanding that we're all longing and looking for.
100%. So you might be dealing with the silent, or getting the silent treatment, right? Yeah. You might be getting criticism. You might be getting nothing back when you feel like you're doing everything that you're supposed to be doing. So you may be feeling unheard, or you may feel like the other person doesn't care. So why even try? So you're experiencing these negative things when you feel like you're putting in the effort, or you're following things that people are suggesting, and it's just not working. And where do you go from there?
All right. So where do we go from there? So number one, before you like, hey, I'm quitting, I'm out, mm-hmm, tap. First, we gotta see, are we doing everything on our part? Mm-hmm. Let's do some troubleshooting.
Okay.
Right. And so what are some ways and what are some things that we can do, mm-hmm, to try to improve on the communication?
Right.
Can I put myself over into their shoes and cross the border? That's going to take humility.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's going to take selflessness. And that's hard, mm-hmm, right? Because we want our way, mm-hmm, and we want to be heard, and mm-hmm, we want the effort given to us. But sometimes offering that extension, being the first person, laying down yourself and saying, okay, I'm going to be the bigger person and cross the bridge, mm-hmm, can be what that other person needs to have them drop all that stuff they've got built up, mm-hmm, in order for there to be compromise, in order for there to be progress to move forward.
Right. And I feel like sometimes in order to put yourself in the other person's shoes, okay, you need to take a minute to step back and not be in the moment, in the heat of whatever's happening that's not working. Going back to the example when I couldn't log in, like in that moment, right, my emotions are a little bit high. I'm already frustrated. I'm already trying things. That's not maybe the ideal moment.
Right.
To really be able to say, my example didn't involve another person, but if
it does, it involves us. Right. And so I'm not saying that I'm perfect. And, in this example that I'm going to give you, there was one person who was the bigger person, not saying you were little,
right,
but in a moment where you were frustrated, in a moment where you wanted to quit, mm-hmm, in a moment where you're like, I can't see this forward. Well, one of us was like, hey, wait a minute, let's slow down.
Yeah, okay? You were in the position to be able to do that.
Yeah.
You were able to say, okay, let's take a step back.
Right.
You also put yourself in my shoes and you said, I know this can be frustrating. I know you don't think it should have to be this many steps to work. So you're giving me something back. You're also stepping in and saying that you can help, or, hey, let me try this out, right, and kind of giving me another solution. Right. So like you said, you were being that person taking those additional steps.
So it's not like, hey, adding to the problem.
Right.
I'm not saying, well, what are you doing wrong?
Right.
It worked for me. You must be doing something wrong. Right. So we're not using those you statements.
Correct.
I'm using I statement. Hey, let me see what I can do to help you. I know I've found some, so let me, right. So I'm not placing blame or shifting. And if you have that situation, that's where it really gets dicey.
Yes.
And again, I'm not saying that we're perfect and we've got this marshmallow, rainbow relationship where, typically someone's going to be level-headed, because had I been that way, well, that would have shut you down.
Right.
That would have caused you to be like, well, who he think he is telling me what I can't do? He thinks he's better than me, right? And because I'm belittling
more defensive, back and forth.
So if you have that situation, right, you don't want to be the person that's doing that.
Correct. Now, also in this situation, I could have gotten up and stormed out of the room, right? And just be done with the conversation, which you might be experiencing.
I don't need your help.
Your partner might be doing
don't
that
tell
too.
Me.
Right. Shutting it down, walking away.
Right.
I'm not talking to you about this. I don't care if you can fix it. I don't want to do it right now.
Right.
And that's a real life example of a disagreement where somebody may just
be could have gone off the rails.
Correct.
Very easily.
Very easily. And people experience that.
Right.
And so if the other person does walk away or does quit, in that moment, you could have still solved the problem for me without me being there. Right. You could,
right. Well, I was going to say, like, okay, if you would have stormed off,
yes,
let me give you that space. Okay. I'm still not going to quit. I'm not going to give up.
You're still working on it.
I'm going to still work on it. Or I'm going to say, you know what, let's come back and revisit this.
Right.
Okay. So maybe you do need to take a step back, and maybe that was your test breaking you failed point, or breaking point at that particular time. But the key that we're trying to make here is that at some point, you're working together, that you don't want to be the one who's belittling. You don't want to be the one who's rejecting help or condemning. You want to be the person who is being patient. So the first thing we really want to do is go back to something that's very, very simple, but it's so very important, is to pray. We've prayed together several times throughout today. This morning, our meal times, confessions, and confessions, just like we'll just together as a family to speak some scriptures over our lives, right? So prayer is important because it just aligns you with the peace and the presence of God. And as I'm praying for you and I'm praying for me, God, help my words today be kind. Help me to understand. Help me to listen. Help me to be patient. Those things, I know it sounds elementary, but elementary is the things that keep things together.
Right. It's the foundation, and it works. Like, we're not just saying this as a fluffy thing. Like, that actually works, which I was going to say, ultimately, everything should be done with prayer.
Sure.
Now, in that example where I was talking about, if I would have left and you would have still worked out some good, or you're still going about what you should be doing,
right?
That is also going to show the person that did take that extra step of stonewalling or silent treatment or whatever. You're a living example at that point of how you can work through conflict resolution. I would have come back and realized, he was level-headed. He worked through the problem. He found a solution. And so even in that moment, if I didn't fully act how I should have acted, you were also showing me through your actions a solution or working through that conflict.
Yeah.
So even if you're experiencing somebody disregarding your feelings or disregarding what you're saying, they're also watching what you're doing. Okay. So if they're not praying with you, you can still pray on your own for your relationship. 100%. You don't have to have the other person with you to do what you need to do for your relationship. If that's the point where your relationship happens to be at.
100%. Love to hear about you going through. Put those in the comments, or where you are and how you feel about what we've said thus far. If you're getting anything from today's content, please like and subscribe. We would greatly, greatly appreciate it. Absolutely. So another thing we can do, obviously, prayer is a foundation. Yep. We mentioned it already, is we can use those I statements and I languages where, all right, as I kind of go back and grade some of my behavior, my conversations with my partner, do I make statements of you? What are you doing and why did you do this way? And put that down. You know, am I making these commands or am I practicing and showing patience? Am I showing a willingness to listen and to understand? Am I saying you made me feel this way or I felt this way?
Correct.
And not putting responsibility and blame on this person, but using those I language statements to help position in the communication and in the conversation. So we can check those things because those things can help. So again, before I'm like, I'm out, I'm quitting, can't talk to you, we got to look at I.
Correct. So you're scrubbing your actions, what you're doing, instead of he's not doing that, she's not doing this. Look at yourself first, right?
It's hard.
And then also using those.
Painful.
Something that you may not want to do or be.
Right.
It's hard to be like completely truthful to yourself.
Yeah.
Or accountable to the other person. Like, okay, yes, I really did do this in this situation. I wasn't as open as I needed to be. I wasn't using the active listening techniques that I know we've talked about, things like that. So you can also talk with your partner about those listening techniques before you get in that moment of the disagreement.
Yeah.
So start there with talking to your partner about those things before it's in action and really working through that. And also, if you can, set aside a specific time just to talk to your partner one-on-one about your relationship, because that's going to help build the foundation for when things do pop up later on.
I'm thinking about two things at once. And so, because you've said something about, what you just said?
The active listening techniques, talking to your partner beforehand, and then also setting aside a specific time to talk to your partner.
Right. You said that, and I'm like, well, she might be listening or he might be listening and thinking, well, I can't talk to my partner.
Right.
And so I want to address that because when you go in thinking and having the thought and the outlook of negativity, you're going to get negativity.
That mindset, right?
That
what you're
mindset.
Already thinking.
So if I'm thinking he's not going to listen, I'm going to communicate that he's not going to listen, like he's not going to listen.
Right.
Or like she's not going to receive.
Right.
Okay. So we got to break that pattern so that you can communicate as like they can receive.
100%.
Even though you were frustrated, one of the reasons that I kept going was I know I can fix this. I know this can work.
Right.
I know there's a solution for this. And so no matter where you are in your conversation with your spouse, your partner, which we focus on, but your child, your coworker, whatever it is, have the mindset, I know this can work.
Right.
I know there is a resolution. I know there can be peace. And so with that in mind, I'm going to have a conversation with them. We're going to talk to them about going to grandma's house. And I know sometimes that can be touchy. So I'm going to use active listening. I'm going to make sure I use I statements. I'm going to make sure that I stay calm. I'm going to make sure that my tone is this, and how I may have approached it before. I'm going to use a different angle. And so I believe this time when we have this conversation, I'm not going to respond like how I used to. And that's going to produce a different outcome as well.
Absolutely. That is so powerful to go into any kind of conversation with that mindset of this can work. We can break through this. We can get through with a solution.
It doesn't have to be World War III or some blow up.
Right. You're setting that already in your mind to actually come into action. And if your partner's not quite there yet, I mean, how powerful is that if both people have that mindset, it's going to be awesome, because you're going to be together aligned, and you're both going to have that mindset, and then nothing can stop you in your relationship. Now, if your partner's not quite there yet, it just goes back to praying for that mindset and setting that atmosphere around your home and in your relationship to get to that point.
100%. That leads me exactly where I wanted to go, where I'm like, well, Terrell, Jen, I've done those things, I've done those steps, but unfortunately my person just isn't there, or whatever reason, maybe they drink, or when they get drunk, it's a different person, or, I'm dealing with something else. Well, then that's where it kind of steps into having in some professional help.
Correct. Yeah.
That might be coaching. It might be therapy, counseling. Because we got to deal with some things that are way deeper than we can address on a podcast, right? Because there are things that could be hindering that person, that's keeping them from listening. They've got traumas, they've got triggers. There's a reason why they feel or they hear something that you didn't say, or they come off a certain way. They haven't really dealt with. And so how to deal with that, if they're isolated and maybe they won't do counseling, well, you do it.
Yeah, exactly.
You get your coaching. We can walk you through that and through those things, because that's important, because there are things you can do personally that can shield you, that can help you, and then position you to talk with or do what you can with that person.
Right. And that's so important. And, taking that initial step of realizing you need somebody else
100%.
To help out is just so important, powerful. Once you're like, okay, I'm going to seek out that therapy, or I'm going to seek out that pastor, or I'm going to seek out somebody that I know can speak into my life and really give me that biblical, view that I need.
Biblical view. It's so important. I was sitting in church yesterday. We had and there's part of the service where people just crying, and we're talking about emotions and just traumas, that things that people have been with, and everyone has dealt with some stuff.
Yeah.
And I encourage each and every person. I know, the Lord has forgiven us, and He washes all things new. We got to talk some things out.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know it's maybe hard, or it seems scary, or something difficult to do, but when you go through it, it can be so freeing.
It is absolutely freeing. So we are here for you. If you ever need us to come alongside you as your partner, as your cheerleader, as your coach, as someone who can say, yes, you can do this, or even just to be quiet and listen to you, we are here.
Yeah.
Hi at oakhavencompany.com. Send us an email. Send us a DM at all social media at Oakhaven Company. We want to hear you. We want to pray for you, pray with you, because you can have a happy, fulfilling, loving relationship that honors God and fulfills you. That's right. So thanks so much for listening today. We pray you got something from this. The moral of the story is, when to give up, never give up. Never give up. There's always a promise for you, and there is a bright future for you. We have a prayer guide for you. Tell me about that.
We do. We have a prayer guide. This one is specifically for your relationship. So you may have heard of had our other one about home atmosphere.
Right.
This one is specifically for your relationship.
That's
and
right.
These are powerful prayers that your relationship needs to thrive and survive. And we have it in a free downloadable PDF that you can get today.
It's oakhavencompany.com/5 prayers. Of course, the description is in the show notes and below the video. You've got to get this. Again, this is a prayer guide specifically for your relationship. We talked about how we pray with each other every day. These are 5 prayers that we pray. So it's 5 prayers you can pray. It gives you the prayer, the scripture reference, explanation about it. It's absolutely wonderful. It's a beautiful PDF. It's laid out, and you will absolutely thrive and enjoy and be a great blessing to you. It's your starting point. Just step 1 to, okay, let me start here. Let me try this angle, right? I've tried everything else I have, Terrell. You didn't try this. So try this and see if this doesn't help you personally. And then you'll see change in your relationship. Get it today. You'll be glad you did. Thanks so much for listening, for joining us this week. We will see you next week on the Home Haven Podcast. And remember that wisdom builds the house.